Hi everyone, Ray Poynter here. So in a moment, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves, and then we're going to be having a conversation, which we're going to break into three parts. First of all, 2020, then 2021, and then beyond 2021. And each one of our wonderful panel members is going to lead on one of those conversations, but we'll all make some comments, and we'll be looking to see in the chat stream what you think, what your questions are. So please feel free to make contributions via the chat stream at the same time as people are speaking. So if I can ask the panel to introduce themselves, first of all, Laura.
Okay, since my picture is first, I'll go first. I'm Laura Bright. I am based in Mexico City. I have been working in Latin America, well, Mexico and then Latin America since I first started in this world. And I've done work all around the world. The only region of the world I've not done research is Africa and Middle East. So I'm open to opportunities. And it's a delight to be here with all of you. I bring client-side experience, full service research experience, and even agency. So kind of sat around all sides of the table.
Excellent. And we'll follow the order of the pictures rather than the order of good manners. Really, we should take the ladies first. So Alain, could you introduce yourself?
I feel ashamed. So good afternoon, everyone from Montevideo. Well, here is the afternoon. For those of you who might be looking on Google Maps, where the hell is Montevideo? It's the capital city of Uruguay, which is not the same as Paraguay. We are on the Atlantic coast between Brazil and Argentina. First of all, I will apologize in advance for my English. It's not my mother tongue, and I've never lived in an English-speaking country except 1 year in England in 1983 when there were still dinosaurs walking around. I've been in the research industry continuously since 1989. I started working at the Uruguayan subsidiary of IPSA, an Argentine research company. And in 1997, I founded the Grupo which is an independent company dedicated to marketing, social and public opinion research. And I've been the CEO of the company since then. I've been a member of the ESOMAR Council since 2019, and that's where I met Ray. I have to confess that when I met him the first time, I said, what an insufferable, neurotic guy. But after a few meetings, I realized that he wasn't more neurotic than I was. And it was like watching myself in a mirror. So now I consider him as a very good friend. So thank you very much, Ray, for inviting me to this webinar.
My pleasure. And Adriana.
Hello, everyone. Good morning from Miami. Well, I'm Brazilian. I've been working with the market research industry for 20 years now. I am actually a computer engineer, and before working with market research, I used to develop information systems and technology platforms for market research and also ad agencies and media planning, always working with data in order to generate intelligence and also to help clients to support better decision making. So it was like a natural path. And I started actually GMI business in Latin America in 2000. Yes, in 2000, 20 years ago. So early stage of online PNLs, online research. Oh my gosh, 20 years ago, so time flies. And so that's when I really fell in love with kind of my entrepreneurship, and by starting GMI business, I really love it to really start all of the relationship with the major agencies, not just in Latin America, but in a global level. And 3 years after that, I started my own company and then founded eCGlobal in 2006. So thank you, Ray, for inviting me and having as part of this panel. It's a really great moment to chat with the industry and with another colleagues and see how our industry is going to evolve, especially in Latin America in the years beyond.
So thank you so much, all three of you. And we'll get started with 2020. And we're going to break this up a little bit, looking at the qual, looking at the quant and beyond. So Laura, do you want to give us some insights into how this horrible year has impacted qualitative?
Well, no surprise, but there was a shift from in-person to online. But in the US and other parts of the world, that's been going on for a long time. And in Latin America, while we've had the ability, we, as a group, we're people that gather. We like to be in the presence of each other. We feed off of each other's energy. So we were much more reluctant, perhaps, than other parts of the world to shift to online. So it's been a big adjustment. But we also come from really large, crowded cities. And so the logistical benefit of not having to travel to the interior, of not having to have participants cross the city and be no-shows, has been absolutely a delight for everyone. That said, because we do like to connect so much, what we're noticing is people are good about turning on their cameras and everything else, but it's much harder to get a deep connection. So like last year, I did some work in the healthcare field, and people cried during the session because they felt such great connection with each other and had found like a new support group. That's not happening anymore. One, because we're more removed and we're not getting to that level of depth, but also because when people are joining in their home, they're surrounded by other people listening in, other interruptions, a pet on their lap. And so there's been a lot of really great things, but there's also been things that are kind of making it hard. And when brands want to dig deep and really find those emotional connections, we're finding it kind of challenging. On the other hand, because there's always another hand, someone wrote to me, because I crowdsourced this, someone wrote to me and shared an example of being able to do work, user interface kind of thing, usability, UX. And they were able to do it with blind participants, all online. And before COVID, probably no one would have attempted that, and it worked beautifully. And so they're very happy. And I guess just lastly, I would say that both client side and researcher side people have shared with me that the idea of this is the way we have to do it is gone. So the obstinate client that says, I need it to do this way, that's the only way my boss is going to take it, or the moderator that has decades and decades of experience and says, trust me, I've done this a million times, this is how we need to do it. That conversation is gone. Everybody's like, well, let's try. So willingness has become the new currency.
Excellent. So now switching from qual to quant, Adriana, can you give us some insights to what you've seen happening in the quant world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So, likewise, the qual word in Latin America, most of the quantitative work, used to be still, using some face-to-face or telephone or some kind of offline, research methodology, and online, in mobile. Is still in, representing a very small portion of all research conducted in the region. So what we've seen this year is that, clients rushing to really adapt their studies and trying to quickly learn how they could move, and adopt new methodologies and technology as well. So we've seen this acceleration, maybe, all of the, digital transformation and adoption of methodologies like online communities and mobile and other methodologies that are already mainstream in the US and some European countries. I believe that we'll see for sure, an acceleration in the next years, and we've already started seeing these, in Latin America. So that's the major, I would say, the major change that started this year and will continue, happening in a more accelerated pace. I believe so.
Excellent. And I've asked Alain to think about the associations and the interconnections, because we would have seen conferences. We would have seen, in fact, the SMR, LatAm would have been an in-person event. The world has changed a lot for the organizations around Latin America and the world. So Alain, some thoughts?
Well, as a member of the ESOMAR Council, I'm always in contact with many colleagues in different countries in LatAm, and especially with the presidents of the local associations and the ESOMAR representatives. So I've been collecting lots of insights from them all along this year about the situation of our industry and about their fears, their hopes, and their expectations about the future. And I would like to share some of them with you because they come from the main people who work in the associations in 7 or 8 countries I've been in contact with in the last weeks. The first fantastic insight was given to me by Ramon Cavieres in Chile. He told me something like, in Chile, we are used to natural disasters. We have earthquakes, your house falls down and you have to rebuild it. But you know that, you know what you have to rebuild, how to do it, and where to do it. And this pandemic was like a natural disaster too, but we didn't know what we had to rebuild or how or where. So it's not about rebuilding, but about reinventing yourself. And I found it was an excellent definition of the challenge we researchers have been facing in LatAm in 2020. When the pandemic started in LatAm in March, we were like paralyzed during 2 or 3 months, not knowing where to shoot. All the rules of the game had changed, or even worse, the whole game had changed. We knew how to play football, and now we didn't know if we had to learn how to play water polo or badminton. And depending on the countries and the estimates the different associations gave me, the market fell between 15 or 20% for the most optimistic and 50% for the most pessimistic. And those who have suffered the most are neither the large companies, the multinationals which have financial backing, do trackings and other continuous studies that didn't stop, nor the smaller single-person companies which didn't have fixed costs that weighed so much in their budget. Those who suffered the most were those companies in the middle, those that had to pay rent plus 10 or 15 or 20 salaries, that is high fixed costs as a percentage of their revenue. And we must also consider that in many cases, these companies are run by technicians who have become entrepreneurs by the ups and downs of life and who came, let's say, from the old school, from the social sciences, where orthodoxy is the rule, probabilistic sample, face-to-face surveys in households and group discussion in rooms with Gesell cameras. They are not digital natives. And it has been very hard for them to adapt to remote working and all the new technologies applied to our activity. So far, the bad news and the empty half of the glass. What's the full half of the glass that pleasantly surprised me? And to illustrate this, I'm going to use some textual quotations from some colleagues in different countries, all of them from different local associations. Someone told me, we are a key industry for economic recovery. And it's true. Who can better than us detect and interpret the changes in consumer habits or the changes in the image of brands, but also what's the impact of public policies in the context of this pandemic. Someone told me in another country, we are in crisis, but we haven't stopped. Nobody is going to explain to us in Latin America what it is to live in a period of crisis. And in our sector specifically, we have learned how to reinvent ourselves and times. They told me in Mexico, we have lived in crisis for 20 years for one reason or another. And in Argentina, they also know something about that. In my personal case, I have barely processed data with punched cards. And I went from face-to-face surveys to telephone surveys at the end of the 90s, and then to cell phones, then to online surveys. And I see that in several countries, my colleagues are starting to abandon the old call center concept and replacing it with cloud-based 3CX phone systems and interviewers who work from home and are paid on the basis of piecework like Uber. Obviously, productivity is much lower, and we have to hire more people than before. But it's part of the new rules of the game. I already saw many qualitative researchers adapting to doing online discussion groups with Zoom or other platforms, as Laura said, and they are very happy and pleasantly surprised with the result of that change. The 13th of March, when the first COVID case was diagnosed in Uruguay, I panicked because I had at least 2 very important jobs that were about to start, with nearly 30 discussion groups in 5 different towns. So I called the CEO of one of my clients and I told him, look, I have no experience with doing online discussion groups, but let's try with one group on Zoom, and I want you to watch it from your home with a glass of whiskey, and after that we decide if we go on with the rest of the groups. And we did the whole job with online discussion groups. So I believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is just like the Black Death in the 14th century. It accelerated a lot of changes that might have taken place anyway, but in 2 centuries instead of a few decades.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alain. And if anybody else in the audience has got something that they want to chip in or say, contribute, now's a quick time, because in a moment we are going to move the clock forward and move away from this wretched 2020 and start looking at 2021. And I'm going to ask Adriana to start us with, what are you seeing as the likely key trends? You've already mentioned some of them, but if you maybe just expand on, what is 2021 going to look like? What are the things you're seeing?
Yeah, so what I really hope, Ray, is that as Latin America embrace, digital methodologies and move the studies, into, online platforms, digital platforms and mobile, that I think that we are going to also jump and apply most of the knowledge that other regions of the world already have gone through. For example, we should not, think about moving the large trackers, to online in the same way that most of the industry tried, 20 years ago when they started using online panels. So I think that we are going to really jump into mobile first, into using automation, sample exchange platforms, using, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of the new technologies that could be still in early stages in other parts of the world. And that I hope that Latin America is not, just wait to start, integrating and, incorporating these new tools, new technologies into our research in the region. So instead of being, maybe 5 years behind other regions in terms of adopting these new technologies and embracing all of the advantage that we know that we have once we really incorporate some of these new tools, and then we can even, have this big jump and start innovating and also exporting some of these new innovations into the rest of the world. So I think that we really have this opportunity. As Alain mentioned, we've learned to, quickly adapt and, live with different type of crises. So we can, even recover from these faster, from compared to other regions. So I think that we have really an opportunity as an industry and as a region to accelerate what we maybe would happen in 10 years or 5 years to 1 or 2 years. So that's what I hope and think that we have the opportunity really to make this happen. Starting, not just in 2001, but, immediately, and seeing this evolve in 2001 and in the years beyond.
Excellent. So Alain, we're hearing some talk about hybrid. People are talking about the events maybe in 2021 will not be old-fashioned face-to-face, but they won't necessarily just be online. Conversations, are we going to be able to talk better between companies and associations, do you think, in the future as a result of some of these changes? And what else are you seeing in 2021?
Well, that's two questions in one.
Value.
I heard some weeks ago a wonderful phrase from a Peruvian colleague that I think is the best definition of the direction researchers will take if we want to survive. Our business is no longer producing data, it's selling consulting. Data is going to get cheaper and cheaper, if not free. Anyone today can get data at a very low cost. Many companies that used to be our clients are doing their own surveys with free tools and their own staff. We must stop being, those who still are, so purist and orthodox with the methodology and dedicate ourselves fully to what artificial intelligence can't take away from us. The knowledge of how to interpret data, the transformation of data into insights, in information for decision making, and helping our clients to limit uncertainty and make the right decisions. And very fast. No client can wait any longer 3 months until we give him the results of our research. One of my first jobs in the early 90s was a product test for a new soap, and it lasted 6 months. Imagine that today. In the same sense, another fantastic phrase I heard from someone in Mexico: we are like war correspondents. We have to get good quality information in a war environment, and many times improvising solutions with a wire and a gum like MacGyver. We have already reinvented ourselves so many times that this may just be one more. In summary, and contrary to what I believed before doing this tour across Latin America, and again, quoting a colleague I talked to some weeks ago, the problem is not the digital transformation. It seems that we have already passed this stage in the recent months. And I find this really interesting. Not so many years ago at a LatAm conference, several colleagues were complaining about how difficult it was for them to convince their clients to switch from face-to-face or telephone surveys to online ones. And I remember I took the microphone and I said that I wasn't that sure that the problem was to convince our clients when many of us from the supplier's side in LatAm were not still totally convinced that the future was in online research. It seems that the COVID-19 helped us to leave this discussion behind. So as I was saying, or as my colleagues from different countries say, the problem, the challenge for 2021 is to reinvent the business, redefine ourselves when dealing with our clients, stop being just data providers, seek alliances with the data analytics sector, no longer think about the mega researches that we used to do, but in a scenario of many small one-off jobs to solve short-term situations. And also, that's easy to say, do not sit around and wait for the market to reactivate by itself, but participate ourselves in that reactivation by offering tools to reactivate it. I strongly believe that the local associations and ESOMAR itself have a very important role to play in that context. Distances are not an issue anymore. All of us have already got used to participate in online meetings, attend webinars, or even conferences in remote mode. And in periods of crisis like the one we are living because of this pandemic, we all need to feel that we are not alone, even if it's only to do our catharsis with people who are going through the same problems. In that sense, local associations in LatAm have been playing a crucial role, and from ESOMAR, we've been working very hard in building strong bridges between the associations and between ESOMAR and the associations. The networking and sharing experiences and knowledge will become essential to make the pie bigger for all. We must stop seeing always our colleagues as potential competitors and see them as potential partners for doing business together. Any researcher will be able to offer his services to any client in the world from any part of the world, because nobody cares anymore about where you're located, and if you have a very nice office in Sao Paulo, or if you work from a co-work space on the seaside in Punta del Este. So I believe that the tendency will be more and more to have more flexible structures and build ad hoc teams for each project with people located in different places.
Super. And so, Laura, you've already talked about this a little bit, and there's a little bit in the chat stream about it. When we have the choice, which may happen in 2021, to go back to face-to-face focus groups, individual depth interviews, in-home visits, how much do you think will go back, and how much, and I'm going to ask you now a very biased leading question, and how much will go forward?
Ooh, great question. In spite of being biased and leading. I would say it's going to be a little bit of everything. We are, like has already been said, a region that's used to crisis and MacGyvering things. We've been doing that for a long time. But that means that we're better at dealing with uncertainty. And uncertainty is really what COVID is all about. And there are people here that are saying, I know how to take care of myself and my family from the disease. I don't know about the economy, the government, the political response, what the businesses and our employment. And so that's where there's uncertainty. So it's like control what we can and worry about some of the other. So in research right now, in the peak of all of this, well, we hope it's the peak, we're still doing on the street interviewing. There's on the street ethnography as well as there is digital. And so I don't think we're going to give up on in-person. I think we're really going to cherish it. I think we're going to maybe save it for the times where we need that in-person connection. And digital is also not going away. We just can't shrink back. There is a huge cost differential that has been present in our markets for a long time, and the digital solutions didn't have perhaps the same value perception for the same money as they did in other parts of the world. I think that will start to shift. But I also think there's a whole new world of research that we're going to start to look at, not down the road, but soon in our pipeline, like in the next few weeks. There's a lot more user interface things with websites. There's a lot more performance delivery as we're learning to order things online and check that that stuff is all working, and that there's the delivery and execution. I think there's room for companies like a Zappos that say, yeah, we happen to sell you shoes, but really what we're about is great customer service. Oh, Latin America would love to have a company like that. So how we research that is also going to be tailored to what the situation is. And also, shopper research just isn't going to look like what shopper research used to. Yeah, you can do a shop along with a mobile phone, but right now shopping is, tuck and roll. You run in, you grab, almost like those old-fashioned time shopping experiences, see how much you can get in your cart for 60 seconds and you get it for free. Well, now you don't get it for free, but the idea is a mad dash in, grab and go. So shop-alongs aren't going to happen that way, and where we're shopping is different. The other thing I would say about shopper, but it extends, is the role of the decision maker is now different. Men are at home and they're seeing all kinds of stuff that they didn't used to. And sorry for the sexist generalization, but that's the reality still. Men are seeing and opining about stuff that they never used to. Who's consuming stuff in the household, the role of the woman in the home, the fear of what happens outside, all these things are shifting. So I think in the very, very near future, the kinds of things that we're researching are really going to change. And some of those will absolutely want to be done in person whenever possible. And some of that is absolutely dedicated to digital and all of the great things that Adriana and Alain have already said. So exciting times ahead.
Oh, definitely exciting times, interesting times. So yes, the work around culture, somebody has put in the chat stream there. I think that's a great comment as well. If anybody out there wants to add in comments, please do so. If you want to ask questions to the panel or specific members of the panel, please do so. So now we're really going to move the lens forward. We're going to talk post-COVID. Now, obviously, we hope that post-COVID might be the end of 2021. You've got the nice summer break, and by the time the summer break is over, we're going to hopefully have more of the vaccine available, things moving in the right direction. But let's go beyond 2021. What do we think is going to be happening in the marketplace in Latin America amongst clients, amongst associations, amongst individual workers, and in the sorts of people who are providing research? So we'll take the rotation, and this time, Alain, if you want to start us.
Thank you, Ray. What should we expect for the next 5 or 10 years? Well, my vision is a little bit biased because I will be 56 in 1 month, and I'm sure that this has a strong influence on what I'm going to say. To me, it's clear that data is going to be cheaper and cheaper to get, or it will even be free. And our survival will depend on our capacity to adapt to that new scenario. We will have to learn about data analytics, data science, or however you name it. We will have to integrate qualitative and quantitative research with data analytics and social media research. In short, our business will completely transform. And I fear that many of my colleagues in LatAm haven't still become aware of this and are following the same path as if nothing is going to change. Last November, we had in Uruguay presidential elections. And I did a lot of public opinion surveys all along the year and the year before. Most of them were published. And you all know that as soon as you publish the result of a poll, you are criticized and insulted in social media and accused of being a political operator. And after the election, I was invited to a TV show to comment the results and compare them to what the polls had said until the week before. And the journalist asked me what I thought that would change in our methodology for the next elections in 2024. I remained in silence for a few seconds. And I said, you know what? I strongly believe that in 2024, all these surveys will not exist anymore. We will be able to deduce with the algorithms just by analyzing your accounts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever will be trendy at that time, who you are going to vote, maybe even before you know it. This is just an example of what I think will going to happen in the next years, and the COVID-19 pandemic will accelerate that transformation of our business, just as the Black Death in 1350 accelerated the fall of the feudal system and replaced it with the capitalist system, or the invention of printing because the monks who used to handwrite the books had all died. And this is a huge challenge for our business in LatAm because, as I said before, many of the professionals who work in our sector come from the old school of research and will not be able to adapt to that change and just will not feel like changing their operating system. That's my opinion.
And I will come back to you after we hear from Laura and Adriana to ask the question, who might the new people be? Because you talked about some of the existing people having challenges, so who might the new people be? So Laura, do you want to give us your insights?
Yeah, so I think that one of the skills that is really going to be required as we look further ahead is our ability to connect different data sources, because the way we get data is going to be very different. I would say that even these things that we've been talking about are part of it, and there are things we've not even thought about yet that we may be dealing with in the not so distant future. So how do we connect these different things, and also how do we connect with our clients, understanding, diagnosing what they're really looking for, interpreting where the real need is, and then how are we more compelling and compassionate in presenting findings. Back to what Alain was saying earlier of consultancy role. I really truly believe that the answer isn't about getting the right numbers anymore. It's about helping the numbers fit into a strategy, and now what are we going to do? And I think our consultative hat, more than our measurement tools, yes, we still need to measure and understand things, but I really think what clients are looking for is direction and understanding. In these times right now of anti-science, anti-facts, cancel culture, fake news, you name it, there's a lot to go against data. We want to use our data in a powerful way, but I think that's in making it make sense and really connect with what our clients are needing to do. And this has been true for a while, but I think it's going to become a superpower now as we move forward. I mean, I've had clients have completely unbelievable results with a very clear path forward, met all the action standards, and they were still hesitant to go forward. And the conversation we had was not about the methodology or the questionnaire or the database size, the statistical significance. It was about help us feel comfortable in making this really difficult business decision. That, I think, is where our future is going. And our ways of collecting the data are going to get far more sophisticated, our ability to understand things. But to me, that's really where it's all at.
So, Adriana, you work across country boundaries. Is the nature of a lot of the work you do. How is that going to change, do you think, in the next 5 and 10 years?
Yeah, so actually, starting with a previous point that Laura mentioned, I think that's very important. It's not just about how we are going to do research in the future, if it's going to be digital, we still doing some face-to-face or telephone. It's about what type of research we are going to do more and more in the coming years, because our clients on the other side, they need to change and adapt their own business. So we've seen, a large number of, large CPG companies that, in these previous months, they had to start, creating direct-to-consumer new distribution channels, or having to create, their e-commerce platforms, or having to start investing in all of the, CX and UX studies. So I think that we have, as an industry, a lot of opportunities to really help clients to go through these transformations, and come up with new tools and improve the methodologies that we've been working, like, the consumer experience studies, the usability studies, that we can now do all of these type of research at scale with, new technologies, with, new tools, and a lot of learnings that, we've seen other countries, for example, already applying. And then, so I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for the industry in Latin America, in the world as well, is really to quick adapt and learn, from the clients and understand what are their priorities. And of course, that's a lot of, consumer behavior and UNA, and, of course, that will gain and continue, increasing, because clients need to understand how consumers and how people are also adapting, their, own routines, and how they relate to products and brands, how, they, Laura mentioned as well, moms, and people working from home. So everything's changing. So we have the chance to also, create new methods and create new research studies and new methodologies to help clients to go through all of these new changes. And so in terms of this multi-country of how I see what would be the skills of the next generation of researchers, for example, I see that we will see more maybe digital natives joining the industry, joining market research, but maybe not as this label as researchers, because at the end they be really working with different type of data, incorporate more traditional methods into other tools. Already have to see from one side more, these digital native and young generations working as researchers and doing, this mixed mode and integrating big data and different tools. And we've seen from our clients that the capacity to, storytelling and data, synthesization, how we can, have a lot of data and a lot of different type of source and come up with something that we can really get into a conclusion or something that is actionable, right? As well. So clients are really demanding more and more skills in terms of
Okay, Adriana, I think maybe
telling and data analysis of traditional report or just, even traditional or long PowerPoints. They really have this new this demand for delivering actionable insights, especially in new ways that they can, distribute this knowledge internally with their own business units and other internal clients in a very effective way, and also apply to make better decision making.
Thanks, Adriana. We had a slight interruption in the video link there, in that your voice went very slow for a while and then it came back really quick.
Oh, sorry.
Which would be the buffering effect, I guess. Another phenomenon of everybody using the internet. So you've taken us on to that next topic really, really nicely. Who are the new people? And there's an extensive debate going on around the world at the moment about, is market research a dirty word? Is it the wrong name for what we do in the future? So who over the next 5 to 10 years might be the new people? Adriana's given us one lead already, but Laura or Alain?
Laura?
Okay. I think it's interesting question for Latin America. I think our very broad spread in socioeconomic configuration of most of our markets has a real impact here, because while a lot of the world is looking at digital tracking and can see everyone's purchase and activities, we have a lot of cash-based transactions still. And the percentages may change for the higher echelons of our populations, but a lot of that isn't. And so some of the digital tools, not that they won't be useful to us, because they will for many clients, but there's a lot of economic movement and a lot of population that won't be touched by that. So I think within Latin America, there's going to be some unique opportunities to do some data gathering that doesn't look necessarily like the northwestern part of the world. The other thing I think is that, no, I'll be quiet. Alain, go ahead.
No, that's a tricky question. I believe that in a very short time, everybody or almost everybody in Latin America will have access to internet. Yesterday, I talked to a colleague from Central America. He works in all Central America and the Caribbean, and some of these countries used to have a very low internet penetration, and now everybody has a smartphone, everybody has access to internet, except some very, very remote regions in the mountains or in the middle of the jungle. But most people do have access to internet and are on have accounts on social media and can be reached by any digital tool. So who will be the new researchers in the future, well, maybe they will not come from the social sciences, or not only from social sciences, but we will have to deal with people who come from, I don't know, maths, computers, even hardware startups or software startups, and people who don't know anything about consumer behavior, and we will have to cooperate with them and make sorts of strategic alliances with people who come from very different horizons than ours. We will have to find a way to communicate with them, because we speak different languages, but they have a part of the knowledge and we have one part of the knowledge. They just maybe they just see algorithms and formulas and software, and we know about consumer behavior, but we need them and they need us. So we have to once again build bridges between different skills and different professions. That's a huge challenge. I mean, during the whole 2020 and also 2019, when this the actual council of ESOMAR started to work, we asked ourselves that question: who should we integrate into ESOMAR, and that are not people who don't even know that they are doing research. They are analyzing the consumer behavior, and they don't know they are doing that. They don't even know that they are doing the same job as we do. So that's a huge challenge to bring them in and show them that we are in the same ship, and we have to collaborate, and we have to integrate our skills to give a better product to our clients, because we also have the same clients.
Absolutely. So we're running towards the end of the time, so I want to throw a challenge to the audience. Thinking about Latin America, which country do you think in the next 5 to 10 years is going to drive the change the most, and why? So I'd love people in the audience to type in, and then we can have a look and see what we think to their suggestions. So who out there is willing to say, I think that X will be driving the change because? So let's just see if anybody is brave enough to go to the chat and type into the chat to see what they have seen. And just while we're waiting for that, I think that one of the things that I have become aware of listening to the three of you is two things. First is that over the next 10 years, we will probably have a major thing disrupting business every 3 years across Latin America, be that elections, be that climate change, economic factors. So disruptions are going to be there, and being accustomed to disruptions is probably going to be one of the main assets the region has. Because yes, COVID, all being well, is going to be under control, but there will be the next issue, and then there will be the next issue. Life is not going to be particularly smooth. Looks like nobody in the audience is rising to the bait. So in that case,
okay, so I'll jump in then.
Super.
Because I've got an idea about this, and I hope I'm wrong and challenged by everybody. But here's my throwdown. Mexico, I think, can be a big change agent. Of course, because I'm here and I love all things Mexico, but really because the ties with the US are so strong in terms of the corporations and the companies doing business, in terms of the things that we export that help the rest of the world run. I believe our ties with outside of the region are quite strong. They would even say that there's a fair amount of Chinese investment coming here as well. Perhaps not to the level of Africa, but it's very evident here over the last 15, 20 years how much it's changed. So I would say just from where we're positioned economically and that we're part of North America, Canada, US, Mexico is one trading economic unit, that interesting things could happen here in terms of what clients are pushing for and what we need in terms of technology and intellect resources to help us develop something new, but that transcends what other parts of the world are using, really built on the constant change and disruption of Latin America, really built on, we have a much more cash dominant society, so we don't have the digital wallets that everybody else has, and really design something unique.
Excellent. So lots of good thoughts there. Got a couple of thoughts coming in from the community, but Adriana, would maybe the main engine of change in Latin America will be Florida? Because Adriana, you're based mostly in Miami, I think, but we can't hear you.
Yes, actually, I'm based in Miami. We say that Miami is like the capital of Latin America, the world capital of Latin America, because actually we have, I believe more than 70% of the population, are Hispanics or have some Latin America background, and we have people from all over Latin America here in Miami for sure. But yeah, so Miami is a strategic, place to be. Quickly, it's easy to fly from Miami to any capital of Latin America, Mexico City, Sao Paulo, or the major cities in the region. But no, Florida is not going to. So Ray, I was having some glitch with my audio, but as I understood, you asked if Florida is going to be leading the trends or what's happening in Latin America. Maybe you can maybe repeat the question a little bit.
That's right. So we've had some suggestions.
Understood.
Yes, we've had some suggestions from different countries that might lead the change over the next 5 to 10 years. And to be provocative, I then suggested maybe Miami and Florida would lead the change.
Really so that's Florida. Okay.
Florida. But there's a fantastic point in the chat stream from Alain.
All right, yes, was a
climate
kind
change.
of a joke.
The climate change may make Florida very challenging.
Yes. Well, we know that. So of course, the Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, has been a country that even took the third place in terms of importance in the region in the last year, especially with all of the economic issues and all of the problems in Argentina. But I know that as well, Colombia, all of this COVID, Alain maybe has some more data about that, but Colombia is one of the countries that really has been suffering a lot in terms of the effects of this pandemic. But I believe that in the coming years we'll see of course Brazil and Mexico being the major countries and the most important ones in the region, but hopefully the smaller ones, including Peru, and Chile, Colombia, and I don't know what we can say about Argentina, Alain, that it's your neighbor. Maybe you can talk a little bit.
You can't say anything about Argentina.
But,
it's impossible to know what's going on.
Maybe still the major countries we continue. Yeah, it's difficult. We cannot say anything about Argentina, right? Yes.
So finally, Alain, So finally, Alain, to come to you in the light of what we're seeing in the chat stream, and with your SMR hat on, you have to be very even-handed between the countries. But what interesting things have you seen?
Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of your question, Ray. Can you
No
repeat
problem.
it?
So I was saying you probably need to be very even-handed because you have your SMR hat on, so you mustn't pick favorite children too much.
No.
But I'm sure you can see some interesting strands. So what additional things have you noticed that have not been mentioned?
Well, as Adriana said, Colombia is one of the countries that have more suffered from the COVID pandemic in comparison with its population. And people who I talked to in Colombia are actually the more pessimistic about the 2020 results in our sector. They are talking about a decrease of 50% of their revenues.
Wow.
But even though I'm always very surprised in every LatAm conference or every research event in Latin America, how the innovations I always see in Colombia in technology, in methodology, in market research. I find they are very creative, and they have already they have switched very fast to online research, more faster than other countries. And when I ask them about okay, but how difficult are you finding to convince your clients to go to online research, and it was like, no, that's not a problem. That used to be a problem. It hasn't been a problem for many years. So let's not talk about that. That's already behind us. So I was really surprised with that, because in most of the other countries, it has been very difficult to switch from offline to online. And even with the COVID-19 pandemic, many companies just canceled the projects they had already accepted, and they were about to start, and they canceled everything because it wasn't possible to apply the same methodology they used to apply. So in Colombia, I think it was well, as far as I saw, it's been it's been easier than in other countries.
Right. Thank you so much, Alain. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Adriana. That's been fantastic.